I have to say, every second was so action-packed that I couldn't seem to shut off my TV, even after being asked if I wanted to continue watching every few episodes, as I always am when I get into something good on the seemingly endless entertainment-packed site. Hello everyone, and welcome to today's video. As you can tell by the title, this one is going to be about a brand new Netflix original series called You. It was just released in September of 2018, making it only a few months old with one season. Therefore, I figured it would be an easy watch and got through all 10 episodes in a matter of only 24 hours. I have to say, every second was so action-packed that I couldn't seem to shut off my TV, even after being asked if I wanted to continue watching every few episodes, as I always am when I get into something good on the seemingly endless entertainment-packed site. With that being said, episode 1 first introduces us to Joe Goldberg, a young, good-looking bookstore clerk who one day sets his eyes on an equally young and good-looking customer named Guinevere, who prefers to go by her last name Beck. She enters the bookstore in search of a brand new novel to read, but ends up getting much more than she bargained for in the process, a stalker determined to make her his, if not by the end of the day, week, or even month, then at a later time. You guessed it, that stalker is Joe, whose brownish black hair and piercing dark eyes aren't the only intense thing about him. The moment he manages to get Beck alone, he decides to strike up a conversation, and they get to know the basics about each other, an everyday occurrence between two people, but the progression of the show only proves that Joe is far from your everyday person. After work, he looks her up on every form of social media he can possibly think of at the top of his head, giving him enough information to figure out every detail of her personal life, from who her friends are to where she goes to school to where she lives. As creepy as that must sound to you and I, he takes no shame in his actions, even going as far as to follow her over the course of the next day in a series of different outfits and accessories he uses to disguise himself as just another pedestrian. By the end of that same day, he steals a final glance at her from the window of her gorgeous New York City apartment, not too far from his own, and realizes that his mission to become the man she never knew she needed won't be as easy as it seems. In the middle of the night, a man named Benji, around the same age as them, meets up with her, and Joe learns that they're in an on and off relationship despite his incapability of staying loyal to her, which he blames on his severe drug addiction. Of course, Joe then takes the initiative to look him up as well, and is extremely disappointed in Beck's lack of better judgment when it comes to the dating game. What may be the most shocking thing of all about this whole situation is that the worst has yet to be told until this very moment, when I tell you that Joe actually masturbates to the sight of Beck masturbating when Benji isn't able to fully please her.
Stop it. Get some help.
Yes, it's disgusting to think about, but girl, I'm not even halfway done with what I'm about to say. It's a different Netflix original to say the least, but when I tell you I can't shut off my TV, I really can't shut off my TV. Being the stalker that he is, it's safe to say that he has a lot of time on his hands. So what is he doing when he isn't jacking off in public, you may ask? Well, he's being a good friend to the only friend he has, his elementary school-aged neighbor Paco, whose life consists of reading books Joe lends him as he sits on the other side of the door to his own apartment to get away from the drama that goes on between his mother and her boyfriend, who is just as abusive to her as he is to him, and not much else. It's a sad one to have, especially for a kid, when he should be getting taken out for ice cream or being cheered on at one of his baseball games instead, so Joe puts on his nice guy act for him the same way he does for the women he meets, and takes him to the bookstore. This is where they go to pick out a new read, or better yet, a distraction from reality. Little does Paco know he's in for a surprise when they go into the basement, consisting of a secret lair of old books that would completely fall apart if left out in the open. For once, any kid would love to be in his place, but unfortunately, good things never last forever. Before he even opens the door on his floor of the apartment for the first time all day, his stepdad is standing outside confronting him for not telling anyone about his social outing with Joe. Maybe watching this go down right in front of him made him not want to be there anymore, because the next evening Joe devises a plan to break into Beck's house without her knowledge, and just when you think things can't get any creepier, you realize there is absolutely nothing Joe wouldn't do to get closer to her. He calls the gas company on a day where she is too busy to spend a chill day at home, pretending to be her boyfriend in order to gain the trust of a worker who is just finishing up his job. He then proceeds to take a tour around her house, stealing a pair of underwear as a souvenir before going through her laptop, where he can take a look at all these social media accounts he stalked from her point of view. Just the thought of being in her position would make anyone terrified to leave the house, so the creators definitely did an amazing job at making the audience question the world around him. Meanwhile, she's arranging a date with her professor so she can get the education she believes that she deserves as a struggling middle-class student living in one of the most expensive cities in the world, completely oblivious to Joe's bold decisions. I want to run up to her and tell her to install a security camera in her house. I mean, who even are these people? Unfortunately though, she's too busy texting Benji, and if there's one thing Joe and I can agree on, it's that just because he's rich doesn't mean that she's way too good for him. In fact, she's way too good for the both of them, and might need some guidance from a friend or family member on who to date because she's incapable of deciding that for herself. Later in the day, she invites her friends to a poetry reading, one where she is the center of attention for all the wrong reasons. One too many drinks in, and she's stumbling over her own words, receiving a series of loud boos from the audience in response. Humiliated, she escapes the judgment of the crowd in her drunken stupor by going down to the train station, where she nearly collapses to her death. Out of everything that's happened so far, it has got to be the most terrifying moment of the show, and that's really saying something, considering everything about Joe's existence, who, by the way, arrives just in time to save her life. This stalking session grants him the opportunity to take her home for the first time that isn't a totally eyebrow-raising moment, but just as they pull up to her crib, Benji ruins their what would have been fateful kiss, to Beck's knowledge at least. She then exits a taxi they caught together, and it's revealed that Joe has taken advantage of her drunkenness by stealing her phone containing Benji's number. Threatened by the mere knowledge of his presence in her life, Joe solves this dilemma by putting on one of his many disguises that he uses to get his way, this one standing out from the rest. Rather than your everyday pedestrian, he gives off the impression that he is a businessman who specializes in soda, a beverage that Benji is trying to make a living off of when he isn't snorting cocaine, and lures him into the basement of the bookstore. There he is attacked, and the screen fades to black. Honestly, I don't know how they could have come up with a bigger episode-ending cliffhanger than that. I mean, that could have been the series finale, but Netflix was just getting started, and that proved to me that they have everything it takes to write a hell of a plot. You know, I would have done a review on the series in a single video, but clearly there's a lot to talk about, so I figured I would do this instead. I really liked going in depth about a topic that I was interested in, the same way I did with Everything Sucks, but it's time to put this video to an end, so I hope that you all enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed making it for you guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!